Nintendo says it is moving some of its production out of China. Meanwhile, while the most recent proposed tariffs on Chinese imports could result in a Bible shortage in the United States. Apparently, the Bibles here in the U.S. are made in China. Joining us right now is the former U.S. Secretary of Commerce under President George W. Bush. He is Secretary Carlos Gutierrez. Mr. Secretary, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
First, let me get your reaction on the China dispute. What do you want to see in terms of a potential deal, in terms of the U.S.'s pushback on some of China's behavior?
Well, I think we have to get to a deal eventually, and I don't think it's going to be the perfect deal. I don't think it will be the only deal. We're going to be dealing with China for a lot of years, and this whole notion of once and for all, let's take care of China, I think is a bit unrealistic. We're currently stuck. The U.S. would like China to put some of the changes into their law. They're not willing to do that. And China has really gone public with this with the trade war. People in China are hearing about it every day. There are national songs about the trade war. That tells me that China is willing to stick it out. And of course, the president is up against an election. So I think that's going to gear where we go. But look, we're far away. The two parts are far away, and it doesn't seem like there's something obvious in the works. So both sides are going to have to compromise. Yeah. It's going to be a compromise deal.
But should the U.S. be pushing back if the Chinese will refuse to make theft against the law in China? I mean, so, you know, the last time we were looking at a deal that both sides were agreeing to was back in April. And at that time, the U.S. said to China, we need to make sure you stop stealing intellectual property from the U.S. And then in the 11th hour, they refused to put that into law.
Yeah, I think it was the fact that we were asking China to change their law. And that was the part where they thought it went a little bit too far. I think we can negotiate a deal. You know, Maria, technologies, these new digital technologies are maybe 10, 15 years old.
Yeah.
This is brand new. 10 years from now, we don't even know what's going to be hitting us. Regrettably, what we should be doing is getting Europe, China, Japan, the U.S. together and figuring out how we're going to manage technology globally. Everyone is splintering into their own little regulations.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a splintered global technology industry that is less than ideal.
This is just what ICE is supposed to do. The fact that we've fallen to the point where we're talking about it like it's news tells you how far that we have fallen in the enforcement side. I mean, it is the most violated federal court order in America.
We're in the middle of a very politicized immigration environment.
Right.
And that's why it's a big issue, because we have politicized immigration, because we have politicized the whole issue of immigrants. So we are in a very divided society right now, and immigration is a real problem. So
well, who's politicizing it, though, Secretary? I mean, there is a border crisis, right? The Department of Homeland Security is asking the Pentagon to authorize 1,000 additional Texas National Guard troops to help at the border. Vice President Mike Pence is going to be visiting the southern border on Friday. We were there. We took the whole show there about a month and a half ago. What I saw was stunning. All these kids coming across the border. We don't even know if they're with their parents or if they're with strangers that paid for the kids. And I met these two, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. They were alone. They walked right over the Rio Grande because there was no water in it. Right behind me, you can see there, from Juarez, Mexico. So what are we going to do about this? These asylum standards, the loopholes that are encouraging loads of people to come. We're talking about 1 million apprehensions this year, probably.
Yeah, Maria, we will not fix immigration until we change the laws. We're talking about refugees and asylum. That's kind of a separate story. But the real issue with immigrants is that we need immigrants to grow our economy. And the only way the private sector can get enough immigrants in jobs that they need, whether it be high-skilled or low-skilled, is if we change the law. Today, they can't get the workers they need, so the only way to get them is to hire illegally or shut down the business. That's the part that frustrates me.
Yeah.
A wall is not going to fix that.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, especially since we've got more job opportunities than we actually have people.
There are about 5 million empty jobs, vacant jobs.
Well, unemployment's at a 51-year low. Mr. Secretary, do you think USMCA is going to pass? Nancy Pelosi still hasn't said a word about whether or not she's going to bring it to the floor. This is going to be an important piece of legislation.
I think a lot will depend on, this kind of game of chicken that's going on. If the president withdraws NAFTA, then I don't think Congress would want, or the House would want it on them that we're out of a trade agreement with Canada and Mexico. There will be some comments. There will be some issues. They'll want to have some side letters. But it's just hard to imagine, even in this day and age, that we would walk away from this incredible trade agreement, which has been wonderful for 3 countries. And, the change between USMCA and NAFTA, yeah, there's some changes, but it's not like it's a brand new agreement.
Well, wonderful for 3 countries, except that so many U.S. companies decided to set up shop in Mexico, have production there, and then pay workers at a fraction of what they were having to pay them in America.
That's true, and that's kind of the way that that economic history has folded for the last 500 years. We need retraining. We're focused on jobs, not workers. We should be focused on retraining our workers and not bringing back jobs.
That's a fair point. Secretary, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Secretary Gutierrez is joining us there.
We begin tonight with financier Jeffrey Epstein, who's spending the night behind bars in New York, facing familiar charges of sex crimes. Correspondent Brian Yennis has more.
If you believe you are a victim of this man, Jeffrey Epstein, we want to hear from you.
Federal prosecutors in New York City urged anyone who may have been victimized by Jeffrey Epstein to come forward. Wearing prison garb, looking disheveled but calm, Epstein, a well-known financier to billionaires, made his first appearance in New York federal court, where he pled not guilty to 2 federal sex trafficking charges. According to the federal indictment, Epstein is accused of creating a sex trafficking network between 2002 and 2005. Prosecutors say Epstein paid dozens of underage girls as young as 14 hundreds of dollars to massage or to have sex with him at his mansions in New York City and in Palm Beach, Florida. Epstein's employees allegedly coordinated appointments with the girls. He is also accused of having his victims recruit others.
The alleged behavior shocks the conscience.
Investigators also revealed in court they found a vast trove of lewd photographs of young-looking women or girls in Epstein's Manhattan mansion. Inside the $77 million townhouse, photos were found in a locked safe with handwritten labels like Miscellaneous Nudes 1 and Girl Pics Nude. In 2008, Epstein was accused of running the same sex trafficking operation, but Epstein cut a controversial plea deal with current Secretary of Labor Alexander Acosta, then a district attorney in Florida. Epstein was facing life in prison, but instead spent 13 months in jail and was allowed to leave for work. Epstein socialized with the rich, famous, and the powerful, including Great Britain's Prince Andrew, former President Bill Clinton.
A spokesperson for Clinton says the president took 4 trips on Epstein's private plane in connection with work for the Clinton Foundation, but added, quote, President Clinton knows nothing about the terrible crimes Jeffrey Epstein pleaded guilty to in Florida some years ago, or those with which he has been recently charged in New York. He's not spoken to Epstein in well over a decade, and he has never been to Little St. James Island, Epstein's ranch in New Mexico, or his residence in Florida. Shannon?
Brian, thank you very much.